Missing someone, love with all your heart. Missing someone, love with heart.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren. For those of you guys who are new, I go by Locks by Lauren on Instagram, and this week I'm going to be showing how I created this fun edgy magenta balayage on my client using all pulp-right hair. Alrighty, so here is my client's before. She's already kind of refreshed her blonde with some at-home color. But since we're going to be going more with a magenta color, we're going to be adding a little bit more pink on the mids and ends to kind of make it more of a pinky purple for her and still highlight her roots. So we're going to be using two different formulas for the root and on the mids and ends there. So I began highlighting her hair in the back, and you can see I'm doing more of a slightly medium to chunky weave on the bottom just to create a lot of solid ends here in the back so that she feels like she has a lot of color. And I am using Blonde AF. I did start with 10 volume and I go all the way up to 30 volume as I get towards the top and the front of her face. And as I'm weaving these back bottom sections, I don't leave any hair in between my sections, so they're pretty much back to back. This way it keeps it more solid and I'm able to color more hair. Now, even though my client's hair is mostly solid already, on the mids and ends, we opted to do more of a balayage look so that she can go a little bit longer in between touch-ups, because if we were to do more of a solid look, she probably would have to come back in and get her roots touched up a bit sooner. So this way it just kind of blends in a bit better, and you'll see later as I get towards the top crown section of her head, I do leave more dimension so that she has a softer grow out, and that's really important with dark hair because it just kind of blends everything more seamlessly. And whenever I do consultations with my clients, I always like to plan ahead and see what kind of maintenance they're kind of going for so that we can be on the same page as far as pricing and when they have to come back in to get their roots touched up. So I usually go over if they want something a little bit more lower maintenance, I kind of recommend what would get them to be lower maintenance, or if they're willing to do something more high maintenance and want more solid color, then I also discuss what that would look like for them as far as like pricing and time and how often they would have to come back in. So once I reach the occipital of her head, I do take this back section as one section here, and here I will be leaving a little bit more dimension. So in between my weaves, I will be leaving a little bit more of her natural. This way, when she wears her hair, it does blend more seamlessly with her natural and doesn't look too solid. Leaving more dimension can help with a softer grow out, especially with clients who have darker hair. And I always feel like if you leave more dimension, I feel like the client can go a little bit longer versus if you leave less dimension. So as I start highlighting her sides here, I will start to do these sections back to back with no space in between because I do want these parts to be solid. And just like the back section, anything below the crown area, I just want that to be solid so it's easy for me to pick up the pieces that I left out this time and highlight them next time, and so she feels like she has a lot more color. And then once I get to the crown, just like I did in the back, I will start leaving dimension. And for this specific look that we're going for, I only like to leave dimension in the crown area so that her ends feel nice and solid and have a lot of color, but still having her roots be blended in with her natural so that she can go longer in between appointments. So here, as I'm reaching the crown of her head, I will start leaving dimension, and you can see my sectioning. It's probably about a 1/2 inch, and I just kind of weave the top of that 1/2 inch and do a medium-sized weave. As I get closer to the part of her hair, I will make my weaves a bit smaller just so that they blend in a little bit better, but that's about it. So here, as I finish the sides and I get towards the temples of her head, I will do the hairline money piece first, and since she has bangs, I'm going to do a few more foils than I normally would. But this is important so that you don't see stripes right at the hairline where the money piece is. It's more cohesive and looks more solid, like a money piece, if you take this as a section on the hairline just right at the top. And then right at the bang, I just did baby lights back to back for this one. Normally, if I was doing like a real money piece and she didn't have bangs, I would probably do like a baby light slice and then maybe a few more baby lights. But because she has bangs, I don't want it to be too bright. I want it to be pretty dimensional and match everything around it. So I just did baby lights back to back to kind of mimic and match the rest of her crown. So now that I finished her bang area, I go back to the sides and again just doing my weaves, leaving dimension in between and taking about 1/2 inch sections as I get through this top crown of her head. And then once I'm done foiling her, I do rinse out each quadrant of my foils according to if they're ready or not. And then I put my clients under the dryer under like medium heat, just to like mimic their body heat, nothing too hot, just because the salon I work at is pretty cold. So I do like to put them under the dryer just to kind of incubate so that the foils don't get cold and process a little bit slower. So it's really helpful when formulating with the Pull Bright semis to reference back to this paint by numbers chart. And so for her root color, I'm going to be using Jam, and I can see what it looks like on different levels, but to cancel out and make it less bright, I'm going to be adding some lemon. And then after that, I'm going to be adding a little bit more of some Cleopatra to make it a little bit more pinky than purple. But yeah, this color chart is super helpful when formulating so that you can see what the colors look like on all different types of levels of hair. So since I want this color to be more of a pinky purple, I started out with Cleopatra as my main base, and then since Jam is a lot darker, I just added in a bit of Jam and then a bit of lemon to kind of balance out and not make the color so bright, because Jam by itself is a very bright magenta fuchsia color, but I wanted something more muted and kind of smoky, so adding in the lemon kind of cancels out the brightness of Jam, which is what exactly we were going for. So here was my first attempt in creating the color that my client wanted, and so I'm just kind of mixing it up and seeing what it might need. So by doing that, I tested out and do a small color swatch on a paper towel. This way I can visually see and kind of compare it to her goal photo and see what's missing or what needs to be added. So here is her goal photo, and I can see from the swatch that it needs a little bit more purple. It's a bit too rosy. So I went in and started to add a bit more Jam, and again added some lemon just to kind of mute it out so that it isn't such a bright color. And I went ahead and mixed that and then tried to swatch it out again. And a lot of times when I formulate colors, it does take me a few tries before I get the perfect shade, and it's really important to kind of reference back to the picture to make sure that you really do get that perfect shade, and kind of go over it with your client to make sure that you guys are on the same page about the color. So after referencing that second mixture, I realized that it was still a little too rosy, so I started to think that we needed to add something to darken it up. So I opted to go with Noir because Noir is blue based and can make this a little bit more purpley, because if you add blue into this more rosy formula, you essentially will be making it a little bit more purpley. So off camera, I already added like literally a pinch of Noir just to deepen it up a bit, and then swatching it, it looks pretty darn close to her goal photo. So I'm gonna go ahead and show my client and make sure it looks good for her. So here I started to pull up my client's foils when they were ready, and I lifted her to about a level 9 and 10 in some areas. And the reason why I lifted her pretty light so that she could have a nice fade, since creative colors do fade quite fast, and she has really dark Asian hair and she pulls really warm. I wanted to lighten her up to at least a level 9 so that it fades nice and pastel and not too brassy for her. And then once her foils were done processing, I took her back to my station and started to rough dry her so that she could be a little bit more dry before applying the semi-permanent. So for my client's color formula, I did end up mixing up 2 different formulas, and at the root I did add a little bit more jam to kind of match her purpley ends since her roots are more blonde. And then for her mids and ends formula, I added more Cleopatra to make it more pinky to match the root, and in the end it kind of just like balances it out and kind of gets it to the same type of tone. For her color application, I do like to start applying the root first before applying the mids and ends. I feel like this just kind of gets me through the color a little bit faster. So here, as I get to the back, I start applying the second formula that is for her mids and ends. And when applying the Pulp-Bright semis, it's good to really saturate the hair and kind of work it in, but not overwork it because it is conditioner based, and if you overwork it, sometimes you can lose some of the pigment. So I like to make sure that I'm just fully saturating the hair and just making sure I'm spreading it really well and not missing any of the blonde pieces. And then once I was done applying, I let this process for 25 minutes and rinse with cold water. Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look of my pinky magenta-y bob. I love how edgy this color complements her haircut. I know this video I didn't go over her haircut, it just would have been way too long, but if you guys want to see how I did this haircut, leave me a comment down below and I'll see if I can show you guys a tutorial on how I like to cut my blunt bobs. Well, I hope you guys learned something new or just feel inspired to do something similar or get fun and creative with your colors. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning into this week's episode, and I will talk to you guys next week.